It's a mini review! Dishaster was a 1983 release by Z-Mag for the Atari 2600. In Dishaster, you're a little girl spinning plates at the top of poles, either 6, 8, or 10 based on the difficulty setting. As the plates slow down, move to the bottom of the pole and press the button repeatedly to spin the plate and make it more stable. If you allow a plate to slow down too much, it'll fall. Catch it to place it back atop the pole. Otherwise, if the plate hits the ground, you lose a life. Lose 4 lives and it's game over. Dishaster is monotonous to the extreme. Frankly, it's a contender for the worst game I've reviewed on the 2600 thus far. 2 out of 10. Mini review. Frankenstein's Monster was a 1983 release by Data Age for the Atari 2600. In Frankenstein's Monster, it's your job to build a barricade around the monster before it can gather enough energy to come alive. To do this, you need to make your way down to the bottom right of the screen while evading ghosts, spiders, and platforming pitfalls to pick up a brick for your wall. Then, make your way back up to the top of the screen. Arriving at the green wall, you move to the second stage where you have to advance through a swarm of bats to place the brick. Do this 6 times before the timer runs out to stop the monster, otherwise he'll break loose in a cool little cutscene. Frankenstein's Monster kinda feels like a horror-themed pitfall, and that's not a bad thing. 7 out of 10. It's a mini review! Gopher was a 1983 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. In Gopher, you play as a farmer defending his carrots from pesky gophers trying to eat them. The rodent in question darts around underneath you, digging holes. When his holes reach the surface, you're vulnerable to attack. Move your farmer above these holes and press a button to fill them in. If you time it right, you can also use your shovel to bonk the gopher. This is necessary if it's already darting towards one of your carrots. In the easier difficulty, there's a bird that will occasionally drop a seed. Catch it and you can use the button to plant a new carrot if you've lost one. Keep playing until you lose all 3 carrots. Gopher gets old after a while, but it's fun for a couple games now and then. 6 out of 10. Mini review. Gremlins was a 1984 release for the Atari 2600. Based on the famous film, Gremlins has you playing as the protagonist, Billy Peltzer, in 2 stages. In the first stage, it's after midnight, and your task is to keep the mogwai from eating the hamburgers. Simply move back and forth to catch them as they fall. If you lose all your hamburgers, you move to the next phase, but if you're able to stop all 4 waves of mogwai, you'll get points for each burger left. In the second stage, the gremlins have hatched and they're attacking. Move Billy back and forth to shoot them with the button before they reach the bottom of the screen. If they make it to the bottom, you lose a life and go back to stage 1. In a pinch, you have 2 flash cubes that you can use to stun the gremlins by pulling back on the joystick. Play wave upon wave for high points until you lose all of your lives. Gremlins isn't bad at all, albeit a bit unoriginal. 7 out of 10. It's a mini review! Jawbreaker was a 1982 release by Tiger Vision for the Atari 2600. A Pac-Man style game with a twist, in Jawbreaker you play as a set of teeth that has to collect all the pellets on the screen while avoiding colored faces that pass through. The unique mechanic here is that instead of a maze, you have rows of barriers with gaps that move along them that you can use to change lanes. At either side of the screen, you have an open area that you can use to traverse the full height of the playfield, but be careful when you use this, as you might get caught by a face coming in from the side. Sometimes a yellow square will appear in the middle of the screen. Getting it will give you a short period where you're invulnerable and can eat the faces for higher points. Jawbreaker is a surprisingly good twist on the genre, and although difficult, lots of fun. 8 out of 10. Oh yeah, it's a mini review! Kool-Aid Man was a 1983 release by M Network for the Atari 2600. In Kool-Aid Man, you play as a famous pitcher of sugary drink, defending your swimming pool against hordes of thirsties. These thirsties move across the screen and occasionally stop to extend straws into the pool at the bottom of the playfield. You have to stop them from draining your pool by touching them when they've stopped to have a drink. Unfortunately for you, they're only vulnerable when in this position. When they aren't drinking, touching any thirstier wall will bounce you around and make you feel like the ball in Breakout. Sometimes either a K, S, or W will move across the screen, and if you can catch it, it will make you temporarily invulnerable. Keep playing wave upon wave until your pool is drained, resulting in a game over. Kool-Aid Man isn't bad, but its lack of variety really limits it. 5 out of 10. Mini review. Mad was a 1983 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. In MAD, which stands for Missile Attack and Defense, you play as a photon cannon defending 6 energy stations from incoming waves of missiles. To use your cannon, move your joystick left and right to position yourself through 7 set firing angles and press the button to fire. As missiles fly over your city, they'll turn white to show that they're about to drop. Shoot them before they do to protect the energy stations. When all of the stations are destroyed, it's game over. There's also a two-player mode where the second player can control the missiles. The locked firing angles and overall mediocre nature of MAD really just makes you want to play Missile Command or Atlantis instead. 4 out of 10. Mini Review! Masters of the Universe: The Power of He-Man was a 1983 release by M Network for the Atari 2600. In Masters of the Universe, you play as the titular He-Man in 2 stages in the battle for Eternia. In the first stage, you're in your Wind Raider, flying the grueling 28 miles to Castle Grayskull. Here, you'll have to dodge and shoot down vertical firing energy bolts and horizontal tracking warp trackers. When you shoot a warp tracker, you can then drop a bomb that creates a hole that you can trick your opponents to fall into. This is a grind, but once you make it to the castle, you move on to stage 2. All you need to do here is pass through the gaps in the moving walls and reach Skeletor without being hit by his laser blasts. In a pinch, you can use your sword to block the lasers by pressing the button. There are 8 levels of difficulty to play through and then continue on for a high score. Despite the great graphics and music at the top and tail of each stage, the Wind Raider part of this game really hurts it. It's odd to control and can feel like penance to have to pay to reach the second, more fun stage. Decent game, but not great. 6 out of 10. Mini Review! Pengo was a 1984 release for the Atari 2600. In Pengo, you play as a penguin defending itself against snow bees, which chase you. You can eliminate snow bees by pushing the blocks to crush them. To push a block, walk up against it and press the button. It will then slide across the screen until it hits either another block or a wall. You can also break blocks should you need to, by pressing the button on a block that isn't able to be pushed by virtue of it being blocked. In every level, there are 3 blocks with yellow squares in them. If you can push these together, you'll get big points and stun the snow bees. In this state, if you touch them, they die. You can also stun snow bees by pressing the button against a wall, stunning all that are touching it. Flashing blocks have snow bee eggs in them, and will hatch as you destroy the ones wandering the screen. If you destroy the blocks before they hatch, you'll kill them. Kill all the snow bees in each level and play as many levels as you can for a high score. Pengo is an awesome game, and this is a surprisingly great port. 10 out of 10. Mini Review! Sky Skipper was a 1983 release by Parker Brothers for the Atari 2600. A port of Nintendo's arcade game, in Sky Skipper your goal is to rescue animals that have been locked in cages by a family of gorillas. Fly up to the gorilla and drop a bomb on it to release the animals, then swoop down and touch them to complete the rescue. When the gorilla recovers, the animals return to their cages though, so you need to be quick. Your fuel gauge at the bottom of the screen acts like a timer to make things more difficult. Keep playing wave after wave to get as high a score as you can. Sky Skipper is a good game, but lacks variety and therefore is only fun for a while before it gets old. 6 out of 10. Mini Review! Space Attack was a 1982 release by M Network for the Atari 2600. A port of Space Battle on the Intellivision, in Space Attack you play as a commander of 3 squadrons of fighters defending their mothership from incoming alien fleets. You start with a radar screen. Your mothership is at the center of the screen and you'll see enemies heading towards her. To dispatch your squadrons to intercept, move the joystick down until the fleet you want to attack is highlighted, and then hold the button and press up, left, or right to send white, blue, or gold squadron, respectively. Once they reach the enemy, press the corresponding direction to enter battle. In battle, the game is pretty straightforward. Destroy all the enemy ships with your lasers. You have 3 ships in each of your squadrons, and you return to the radar mode if you either destroy all the enemy or lose all 3 of your ships. Continue to engage alien fleets until they make it to your mothership and destroy it. Space Attack adds a strategy element to an otherwise standard shooter mechanic, and it's good for a play now and then. 6 out of 10. It's a Mini Review! Squeezebox was a 1983 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. In Squeezebox, you play as a prisoner trying to escape from a cell with the walls closing in on you. Shoot the colored blocks by moving around the cell and adjusting the angle of your shot by moving the joystick up and down while pressing the button. Game variations include having the walls grow from one or both sides, as well as a mode where the goal is to shoot the colors back until they turn white. Once all bricks are white on one side, you escape your cell and move on to the next level. Squeezebox is a decent game that's hampered by its somewhat clumsy aiming controls and lack of variety. 5 out of 10. Mini Review. Strawberry Shortcake Musical Matchups was a 1983 release by Parker Brothers for the Atari 2600. A kid's game, in Strawberry Shortcake you have to match sections of different characters from the cartoon series. There are several game modes including the most simple, matching to the name below, to the most complex, matching to that character's theme song while under a tight time limit. And that's basically it. There's no way to lose. If you get it wrong, just keep trying until you get it right. As such, this is a pretty boring game with no challenge. At least when you succeed with a match, they dance for you. 2 out of 10. Yeah, mini review. Taz was a 1984 release for the Atari 2600. In Taz, you play as a spinning Looney Tunes character as represented by the tornado on the screen. The goal here is to eat all the food you can while avoiding dynamite. The playfield is divided up into 8 rows where a constant stream of items will cross from different sides at ever-increasing speeds. Move Taz around the screen to collect food for points. Accidentally eat a stick of dynamite though, and you'll lose a life. There's a bit of a snapping effect when you hit each row, which can sometimes result in you accidentally overshooting what you're aiming for, often resulting in disaster. Taz is simple fun, but you can only play so long before it gets old. 6 out of 10.